at least like 50 times a day. I was making myself sick.
50 times
50
a
times
day?
a day.
I know nothing about anorexia and bulimia, but I guess I tend to get the impression that people think they're fat, or that they look fat even when they're not, and that's why they stop eating, because you think, shit, I need to have less calories here. I mean, it was that kind of a thing. Or?
That came later. The body dysmorphia came later. I think at the time it was just self-sabotage. It was like I felt so I couldn't talk about my nan, so I couldn't vocalise how I felt or even ask my mum, because anytime you spoke about my nan, she cried. So it's like, listen, don't talk about it. I don't want to upset her. Like, I didn't talk about, I still thought the football thing was me. I was a failure. I'd let everybody down. I was not clever enough to stay at school. And it was just it was just a blame game. Instead of, like you'd have someone that was an alcoholic, they'd gone a binge, or any type of binge, like a drug binge or a drink binge. Mine, to start with, was exercise. And then I did it for a few months, and I obviously got that runner's high, whatever you want to call it, and then that started to wane, and it was like, what else can I do to give myself that rush? And it was like, how far can I run? How little can I eat? That was that competition I had in my head, and obviously I just took that to the absolute extreme. For when about a year after of doing that, that's when obviously I'd lost a hell of a lot of weight, and my parents took me to the doctors, and my parents had explained what was going on in my life, and that's when I was diagnosed with anorexia.
And so, forgive me, which is the one where you don't eat, and which is the one where you make yourself sick?
Anorexia is where you restrict and don't eat.
Right.
Bulimia is obviously where you would binge and then bring the food back up. So it got diagnosed, and it was just like, what the hell's that? Like, I had no idea. I think whereas now like mainstream, like media, like talk about it a lot more. Obviously back, we're talking like nearly 20 years ago now, 19 years ago. Like there was no programs about it. None of the soaps were talking about it. It wasn't in, like, celebrities weren't talking about it. And I do not know. It's not like I read it and gone, oh, that sounds interesting. It was just, I think, how I was wired and what I wanted to do to punish myself. That was my vice. Obviously, if I'd have been wired any differently, it could have been drink, it could have been drugs, it could have been anything. But the method was different. I think the results were the exact same. I was doing something to block out how I was feeling. That was my coping mechanism. And it wasn't long after it was diagnosed as anorexia that I changed, manifested itself into bulimia. So it was like, the reason for that is I was so hungry. I'd go to bed hungry, wake up hungry, and it was just, I just rebelled against that feeling of hunger by eating anything and everything that I wanted. But the moment I ate it, it was like shame, guilt, like, you've lost, you haven't been able to curb your hunger pain, so you're a failure again, and you've got to bring it back up. And obviously that's where, like, I'd lost a lot of weight with the anorexia, but it's the bulimia that really, like, caused a lot of health issues. So obviously, like, we're talking probably now like 18, coming on 19, and then that's where. So I had my eating disorder for 10 years.
I was going to say, yes, you had 8.5 years of bulimia.
Yeah.
And when we say 8.5 years, is this an everyday thing?
Oh, yeah.
So you don't have a bad day and a good day, but it's 7 days a week for 8.5 years.
There was apart from maybe the last couple of years, when I would, like, win the day, for a good 7 years. It was all every day. And we were trying to work it out. Like, it would have been at least like 50 times a day I was making myself sick.
50 times a day?
Because I had this.
And are you eating as well?
No.
So you don't eat and you puke up?
Essentially, what I was doing was I became nocturnal. Eating disorders, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, they are incredibly secretive. You do things behind closed doors. You don't like anybody to see you because, again, you're fixated by food. Every single thought in your head is food, because it's either you're hungry, you're thinking about food, you have cravings for food.
When you say they're secretive, though, do you think they're secretive? Because like, my impression is normally when you look at someone who's anorexic or bulimic, you know they are, and they might think that they're being secretive about it, but whether or not they go and hide in the toilets or deny it, I mean, you know what they're.
Yeah, I think obviously the outcome, the result of what you do is inevitable. You can't hide that, but I think it also comes with the secretiveness of hiding food, like storing food in your bedroom, like whether you hide it because you don't want to eat it, or you hide it for later when you having that crave to binge. You've got food like somewhere, and it is literally, the habit is the same as an alcoholic. You hide drink around the house, or you would disguise it in different things. And obviously the way that I ended up, the routine that I become accustomed to was, I basically had anorexia during the day, so I wouldn't eat, and then I would wait for my parents to go to bed half 10 at night, and I would stay up from 10:30 till 6 o'clock in the morning, just binging on food. So I'd go out in the day, buy whatever food I was craving, leave it in the boot of my car, and I used to park my car below our living room window, open the window up, climb out the window, open my car, get all the food out, and then just sit in the lounge and just binge on food for 10 hours?
And what is the process that you spend 10 hours eating, enjoying that food, liking that taste?
I think it's the initial taste, and then that feeling of like your belly being full, because obviously
which you like that.
You
feeling.
liked it, but then as soon as you sit with it, guilt has to come out.
And then at that point, then literally like a few minutes after you finished your last bite and you've got a full belly, that's when you start puking.
Yeah, and obviously it'd be like you'd constantly make yourself sick until there was nothing else coming out of you. And obviously how my health deteriorated was I wouldn't know when to stop making myself sick, so I'd end up
puking out.
And obviously that's where at 21 I'd started passing out. If I got up out of the chair too quick, or I got up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, if I got up too quick, bam, I'd wake up on the floor. I wouldn't know how long has passed.
What were you doing for work, or did you have friends and stuff at this time?
No, obviously like that I was signed off work. Is it employment support, ESA, whatever it was? I know it's changed a lot now. But yeah, I got signed off when it was diagnosed with anorexia. Obviously friends had already gone by then. Obviously at 18, obviously a lot of them went off to uni. So even prior to that, when it first started, obviously a lot of them were like, "Oh, are you coming out tonight? You coming out this week?" "No, mate, no, I'm busy. I've got plans." And then you just eventually ignore them, and then they eventually just stop asking you. So all my friends that I had at school, I lost.